At Midway USA, we put customers first. The Nitro Express shipping system is icing on the cake. It was a big investment of time and money to take super fast, low-cost shipping to a whole new level. The Nitro Express helps ensure same-day shipping and low shipping cost. We hope you enjoy the Nitro Express. We built it just for you. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com.
I'm Larry Potterfield with Midway USA. Thanks for your business.
Midway USA has ammo for your next hunt. If it quacks, honks, whistles, or cackles, snorts, gobbles, grunts, bleats, or bugles, you need to shop before your season starts at Midway USA. The right hunting ammo makes all the difference, and at Midway USA, we've got a massive selection of premium hunting ammo from top brands like Winchester, Hornady, and Federal. From big game to small varmint, you'll find the perfect load for every hunt. And with fast, reliable shipping, you'll be ready when the season starts. For just about everything for hunting, shop MidwayUSA.com.
Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of CastingAcross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. You have found yourself at episode 358. And before I get into the topic at hand, fly rods, specifically fly rod reviews, I did want to mention that once I get to like the 8th or 9th episode in a run of 10 episodes, I like to remind folks that now is a great time to send in your questions, your comments, or if you have them, your accusations. You can send them to Matthew at castingacross.com. You can use the contact form on the website. Whether I address the topic or not on the 10th episode of the podcast, or in this case, the 360th episode of the podcast, I'll still do my best to get back to you individually. I guess I would say I pride myself in doing that only because if you've taken the time to share something with me, it's the least I can do to respond to it. So let me know if you have anything that you'd like me to address. Matthew at castingacross.com. All right, as promised, fly rod reviews. So what am I talking about today? Well, I recently did a fly rod review on the website. I haven't done as many recently as I did early on. There's a few reasons for that I may or may not get into as the podcast goes on. But I appreciate people who have thoughtful and honest fly rod reviews. And this because there is a lot of a quasi AI generated content out there, honestly. It's basically copy and paste from press releases from the rod companies. I get the press releases from the fly rod companies, and so every once in a while I'll click on an article from another fly fishing website, and it's basically the exact language from the press release. And it gets thrown onto their website. And it's not a review; it's just a forwarding of a press release for all intents and purposes. Now, there's value to that, but I don't want to hear from a fly rod company that their fly rod is the best fly rod in all these situations and circumstances. I want to hear from a reviewer, even if they have biases, even if they have kind of a perspective that is within being a fan of a particular rod company, how this rod works. And I think it's also worth knowing that, money goes into a lot of these things. There are some really, really good fly rods that throw a lot of money behind their marketing and promotion. Then there's some not so great fly rods that throw a lot of money behind their marketing and the promotion. And so you kind of have to do a little bit of research and really, listen to a number of voices, and then also get out there and do it yourself. Spend some time casting that rod to be able to really get an idea of what you're getting yourself into. Don't buy a fly rod sight unseen. If you want a fly rod, then go out and test it. If you want a fly rod, then find a way to get that thing in your hands, and then buy it from that fly shop. But I do want to talk about how I go about doing a fly rod review, and that doesn't mean it's the right way. It doesn't mean it's the best way. In fact, one of the things that I wanted to share today is how I cannot, as Matthew, as Casting Across, I can't give you the full breadth of information when it comes to a fly rod and how it performs, because there are some incredibly complex pieces of equipment and computing technology that I don't have access to that some reviewers do, and you can certainly go and seek that out. But I'll talk about that more later. So all that to say, What do I do when I try to review a fly rod? Well, the first thing I like to think about with it when it comes to fly rod is just how it casts under normal circumstances. So I will take a fly rod, and whether I be at a fly fishing show, and what I like to do at fly fishing shows actually is I get there early before the doors open to the public, and I go in, and I've usually talked to the company representatives and say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to show up early. Is it cool if I grab that rod from your booth? And everyone's always really good about that. And I like to go, and without a bunch of people talking to me or about a lot of other people casting in these ponds, I like to put a rod through its paces. Now, I'd love to spend a couple hours with each rod, but I feel like 10 or 15 minutes gives me a good representation of that rod. So I like to do it at fly fishing shows. I like to go to fly shops and try out fly rods. And then, of course, I buy rods. So usually, I would say, if you go to the Casting Across website, 9 out of the 10 fly rod reviews that are on there, there's not a ton. There's probably, 30 or so, are rods that I own. I don't know if I own that many fly rods. But anyway, they're rods that I've owned or I've spent a lot of time with because I do like to just spend time casting them. But I like to cast them on the grass, I like to cast them on the water, and I like to cast them with a fly on them because that gives you kind of the full perspective. So a rod that's a really good lawn caster might not perform super well under normal conditions, particularly if it's maybe a slower rod, and so it's going to change the dynamics of the cast significantly if you're having to contend with surface tension of the water as you are pulling that line up into your back cast. Little things like that significantly change kind of the performance of the rod. That said, I think there is something to the idea of a rod cast on grass or on a gym floor or even just on very, very still water to have a variable, limited perspective on a cast. So that's one of the first things that I like to do. Just kind of get a baseline of how this rod casts, even if it's not super accurate for angling conditions. And again, based upon the type of rod it is, and application is a big thing that I'm going to come to here in a second, then I will make those casts. For a freshwater rod, how does it perform at 20, 40, 60 feet? And then, if it's maybe a more stiff 5-weight or a 6-weight that I would want to really bomb out on either still water or on a large river, then maybe cast further than that. If it's a saltwater rod, 40, 60, 80, something like that. I do like to see how a rod handles just flipping line out. If I'm, just replicating how to quickly get line out to a fish that's right in front of me, which is a normal way to present a fly in a small mountain stream situation. Or I also like to see how it can be pushed to its limits. So how far can I cast line on this particular rod? I'm not the best fly caster in the world, but I do feel like most good saltwater rods under nice, calm conditions, I should be able to cast almost all of that fly line out there after a few minutes of playing with it. So anyway, those are some things that I like to do and just get an idea of the flex profile, again, with less variables there. So yeah, there's not a fly, it's probably not water, but just get an idea of okay, they're calling this thing a fast rod. It maybe feels a little bit softer than that. They're saying this rod gives increased feel. Well, it does from 20 to 40 feet, but once you get a lot of line aerialized, it starts to lose any benefit, and if anything, maybe it just becomes a little bit soft at that point. So things like that are things I like to pay attention to when I get the rod in my hand. First and foremost, I do wiggle it. I mean, I don't talk about what it feels like when you wiggle it, but we all do that when we grab a fly rod. So that's the first thing, is how does it perform? Kind of a corollary to that is how does it feel? I mentioned, this does feel like a true medium fast rod. This does feel like a true fast rod. Does it feel like it needs to be lined up? A lot of times the grain weight of a particular line will have a significant impact on the action of a rod. So the rod I reviewed this week on the website, I think it performs really, really well with a heavier 5-weight line. A lighter 5-weight line, it doesn't seem to perform well at short distances. Once you get a lot of the full belly up in the air and you're casting it, then does great. But for most normal 20, 30 foot casting applications, having that almost like a 5.5 weight situation, it's going to make it cast a little bit better. And so how does it feel? How does it feel when you are just flipping lines? So if I'm testing a 7'3" weight, does it feel good when you are simply making little roll casts? Does it feel good with that 9 weight when you are trying to make a presentation cast after only one back cast? Or does it feel like it needs a little bit more to load it with a normal line under normal conditions? So those things are kind of in between performance and application. Just, for what I assume I would use this fly rod for, or other people would use this fly rod for, does it feel like it is going to get the job done more often than not? So performance is the first thing, feel is the second thing, and then applications is kind of where my brain starts to go. Because if I get an 8'2" weight that is built with a very, very soft graphite, I don't expect it to give me hula hoop precision at 60 feet. I don't. Could I do it? Probably, but is that a reasonable expectation? I want this thing to be able to delicately present dry flies from 20 to 40 feet. It's going to be casting a thread-thin fly line, and yeah, I could probably put a 3 weight on there, but that's not what it was designed to do. Same thing with a fly rod of an interesting length. So okay, this is a 6.5 foot fly rod. What is this good for? Is this only good for kind of working your way up blue lines and just kind of something between dapping and flipping your fly line out? Or is this a 6.5 foot fly rod that you could go to a medium-sized stream and make good dry fly casts? Is it marketed to be able to do one or the other or both? And start to think through, okay, this is a great rod if you're content with having a relatively narrow application for this rod, or this is a rod that's good for multiple applications. Again, there's some fly rods where I get a hold of them, I'm like, man, this is going to be a great streamer rod or light warm water fly rod, but I just don't see myself using it because of its feel, because of how it casts maybe at 40 or 60 feet. I don't feel like this would be a great dry fly rod for fishing for trout. So I would put it in a different category. That's not to say that it's not a good fly rod. It's just a fly rod that may be suited, at least for someone with my casting stroke or within a standard deviation thereof. This might be the best application for this fly rod. So that performance, feel, and application is really kind of the core of the performative nature of that fly rod. How is it going to function? How is it going to work? Thinking about that for me, with the less variables as possible, then including those eventually, taking it out on the water, actually fishing with it. How does it feel? Is it doing these things intuitively, easily? For me, there's something, again, I've been casting fly rods for a long, long time. And even though I'm certainly not the top tier expert, if I have to work hard to get a fly rod to perform kind of where its bread and butter should be, I think that there's an issue there. I've had fly rods before where I have to always think hard when I'm casting, or put more effort into it. When I'm fishing that 9 foot 5 weight to trout, I don't want to be thinking about my cast. I want that cast to come organically. I'm at a place in my fishing and in my casting where I don't want to have to think hard about it. Now, that's a ridiculous thing for me to expect as a primarily warm water angler and a trout angler for when I go out on the flats and I'm having to really work at putting out maybe a 10 weight that I've never fished before out 80 feet. That's silly for me to have the expectation for that situation, but for maybe a trout application, it is something that I don't want to have to work extra hard. And so that's the kind of thing where I say, okay, if I'm having to work extra hard, there's a good chance the majority of fly anglers will also have to work extra hard for this rod in this situation. It's not the kind of rod that makes me happy. All right. That was a lot about that. But the next thing I wanted to allude to earlier, and I want to mention now, is that there are more technical specs that you can go and find online. Now, these are not things that I do, but they're the things that I take into account. It's the kind of data that I look at when I compare two rods that I've cast or two rods that I've fished, and that has to do with various things like the stability of the rod, the way the rod tracks, the swing weight of a rod, just the flex profile of that rod when it's actually brought into a sort of laboratory setting, the weight of the rod. Again, the weight of a rod, how many ounces it weighs, is, I wouldn't say it's inconsequential. I think it's helpful when you're looking at two different rods and trying to compare them, but the weight is completely dependent upon how that rod is balanced, on the weight of the reel, all of those things. You may have a feather light rod that becomes cumbersome because you can't find a reel that is light enough to really give you the benefit of that really, really light rod, and it becomes very, very butt heavy. So that's another one of those statistics and empirical things that is worth paying attention to a certain degree. But you can find websites and YouTube videos that really dive into these details, and I think they're worth paying attention to. I also think that it's probably only a small portion of fly anglers that are really looking at these things, because the fact of the matter is if you want to buy a premium fly rod, which is what most of the rods that get run through this rigorous testing, I mean, you're probably talking the $600 to $1,200 fly rods get thrown to these testing. You're going to go and cast those rods. I really hope you're not buying a $900 fly rod sight unseen. And if there's two that you're kind of going back and forth about, that you cast them and try to cast them back to back. And so those statistics are helpful, but they shouldn't be making decisions for you. All right. So performance, feel, and application are what I like to go off of first and foremost. I think it's worthwhile, if you really want more details, to go to some of those more technical tests. The next thing I like to take into account is cost. I'm not going to hold a $150 fly rod to the same standard I'm going to hold a $1,000 fly rod to. It just doesn't make any sense. And if I get a 7 out of 10 on my little, I actually don't have a 7 out of 10 or a 10-point scale in my head, but just, generally speaking, if I have a $100 or $200 fly rod that gets a 7 out of 10, and then a $600 that gets an 8 out of 10, which rod do you think I want to buy, and which rod do you think I'm going to recommend to you? Is a slight difference, a slight improvement worth $500? Absolutely not. So in my mind, a rod that performs marginally well, that costs significantly less, is much, much better than a fly rod that performs pretty well, that costs a lot more. I don't buy into, and I've said this before, the fact that expensive fly rods are a scam. I don't. I've got some very, very, very nice fly rods that I think are very, very nice. I've cast some rods that I'll probably never buy unless, and I'll probably never own unless they get sent to me for, just me being a nice guy, I guess, that are just spectacular casting tools for trout, for saltwater, ultralight line weight rods, and heavy rods. They're just really, really good. But are they that good to warrant spending the extra $400, $600, $800 on? And a lot of times the situation is no, especially if you are on a budget. So I like to take that in consideration when I am talking about a fly rod. I'll sing the praises of a $200 fly rod all day long, even if it is inferior in many ways to an $800 fly rod, because I think that speaks to something. If I can either buy 4 fly rods for the price of one, or I can buy 1 fly rod and go on 2 trips for the price of one, I think that for a lot of us, that is a very, very tempting proposition. All right, so cost is a significant component to it as well. Something I just now thought of. I like to think about rods that come from companies that are not necessarily updating things super, super fast. For a fly rod series that has some endurance, like the company puts it out and they expect it to be in their catalog for the better part of a decade, I think there's value to that. They're not necessarily trying to update that rod just for the sake of updating it and selling you something new, but saying this rod fills a niche in our catalog and in the angler's quiver, and so we're going to go all in on this rod. We're going to start developing a different rod, But this one is a rod that's worth having. That's not necessarily an across the board truism, but it's something that I like to pay attention to. The next thing that I like to talk about and look at is components and features. What kind of reel seat are we looking at? What's the quality of the cork? What kind of guides do we have? How is the blank finished? How is the blank epoxied? How are the quality of the wraps? The way that the rod connects? Little things like that. I mean, things that are ultimately not going to affect your fishing too much, like rod segment alignment dots and double uplocking reel seats and all that sort of thing. Those are all good things that I think we should see on most fly rods these days. They're worth pointing out. And again, it's just one of those things that shows, okay, this rod manufacturer is okay putting a few extra dollars into this rod and passing that on to you. So components are the next thing I like to talk about and just point out to people, because some people are, really excited about hook keepers. Some people really hate hook keepers, but I don't know. I don't think it's worth dividing over. And then the last thing I'll throw in there is aesthetics. I think you should enjoy the way your fly rod looks. I think that it should be something pleasant. Now, if there is a basic black fly rod with a black anodized aluminum reel seat and just a simple label on it, and it completely outcasts a rod that is just beautiful, is that going to make me go with the pretty rod over the plain Jane rod? No. But I do appreciate it when a rod manufacturer says, hey, we're going to make this look a little bit different, a little bit special, not necessarily gaudy or ugly. And I say that fishing, yellow fly rods and red fly rods and rods with really funky colored reel seats. But it's worth pointing out the aesthetics just because, again, fly fishing is a naturally aesthetic activity. It's something that has a visual component that adds to the appreciation of the pursuit and what we fish with. So that's a bit of a brief run through about how I look at fly rod reviews, both my own and others. Again, there's other people that have been doing this way longer than me. There's other people that get the benefit of having every fly rod, for all intents and purposes, sent to them so they're able to test them out. And there's fly rod shops or fly shops that sell fly rods. That's what they're called. That they give honest reviews of gear that they sell. They will say, this is a C+ fly rod. You're happy, you can come and get it. It may work better for you. And I feel like stuff like that is fantastic. I feel like that I really, really respect fly shops that do that. That they're saying, we really love this series from this rod manufacturer. This one seems to be coming up short, but you can definitely come and check it out. It may work for you. I think that's fantastic. It's super refreshing. It shows that there's some, integrity within the community of fly anglers. But any questions about that? Any questions about any particular fly rod I have reviewed? I'll talk about one here in a second. Let me know. Matthew@castingacross.com. This week on Casting Across, the first article is called Fish Every Day, the Redington EDC. So a quick note about this. Redington's EDC came out this winter. It stands for Everyday Carry. I fell in love with this rod. That's some strong language. I really, really like this rod. How about that? When I cast a few models back in the winter time at the fly fishing show. And so I picked one up. I picked up a 9.5 foot 5-weight, and I've really enjoyed it. I thought I was using it for one thing. I ended up using it kind of for another, but I really, really like it. It's one of those things that I appreciate, which is a fly rod company who tries to maintain some budget consciousness, but it's their top end fly rod. I think you can always find some real good value at that situation with a lot of different fly rod companies. So check out my review of the Redington EDC. Wednesday's article is called Video, Miss Orvis's Life in Flies. This is a video review of a book called Mary Orvis Marbury, A Life in Flies by Steve Voigt. I have reviewed Steve's other work, Fly Fishing Treasures, and both of these books are simply wonderful. I don't have enough good things to say about them. The only thing that I would say is a negative is the price, but at the same time, you spend $50 on a normal sized hardback book with full illustrations. This one's twice as big and with so many more photographs. So I guess it's warrants the $80 price tag, I think, is what this is going for. If you are a student of fly fishing history, if you're interested in the contributions of women anglers throughout American fly fishing, if you like the Orvis Company, if you just like looking at pretty pictures of flies, then do yourself a favor, go to the Fly Fishing Treasures website and pick up a copy of A Life in Flies. You will not be disappointed. This week's recommendation, a little bit abstract. I know I like to recommend products, I like to recommend websites, I like to recommend videos and things like that. This one's a little bit different. If you fly fish and you have friends that fly fish, then I would encourage you to review a fly rod. And what do I mean? I don't mean necessarily create a website. I don't mean create a YouTube video, but try to articulate why you like your fly rod. What makes it good, where there may be some shortcomings, what is special about it. Just give it a shot. Go out in your yard or conscientiously think about this while you're casting and fishing next time, and see what you can do in a few minutes to describe that fly rod. Maybe compare it to another one with somebody that you know and that you fish with that's not going to think you're super duper crazy. Why is this valuable? Well, one of the things that I like to talk about a lot, and one of the reasons why I have that the First Cast podcast series is I think it's valuable for anglers to be able to articulate simple principles of fly fishing to other anglers. It's really helpful when people are starting off, and it's also I think it's a good exercise in being able to know why you know what you know. So if there's something you like to do, and if you want to share it with me, send it my way, Matthew@castingacross.com. I'd love to read your review of your fly rod. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app, rate the podcast in Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.
Bow hunting all comes down to a moment. And in the moment, you want equipment on your bow that will get the job done. Trophy Ridge products are the tools bow hunters trust. React Technology sights, rests, stabilizers, and quivers to help a bow hunter be successful in the field. And those tools are from Trophy Ridge.
Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.